Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hanging Out with Mrs. Hammond today on the porch. It's a beautiful day outside, so we came outside and we're going to read here. I have my coffee with me, and I'm about ready to begin. I have some exciting news to tell you guys. We have 4 more awesome readers that are going to join our team of Mrs. Reader's Readers. And it was just South Elementary's readers, but now we have someone from every school. And it's going to be Daingerfield Lone Star ISD presents Mrs. Reader's Readers featuring, and today it's featuring, of course, Hanging Out with Mrs. Hammond. But we're going to be hearing from West Elementary, which is going to be Mrs. Darden. We're going to have Mrs. Croswell join me at South Elementary. We're going to have Mr. Darden, and you know how funny he is, at junior high, and Mrs. Sutton at high school. Oh, great. I can't wait. You guys are going to love it. Remember, the book that Miss Hammond is reading is worth 6 points, and it is Matilda by Roald Dahl, illustrated by Quentin Blake. Now, before I begin, let's talk about what we read last week. We read about Matilda starting to school, didn't we? Matilda, it was her first day at school, and she had this wonderful teacher, Mrs. Honey. Mrs. Honey was just, oh my goodness, she couldn't get over how brilliant Matilda was at 5 years old. Couldn't she, little bear? She couldn't get over it. So today, she's going to go talk to the headmistress. The headmistress' name is Miss Trunchbull. That's like Miss Reader at South Elementary is the principal, okay? Or any of the principals at the other school, Miss Lewis, Miss Billingsley, okay? So that was like, but they were called headmistresses. But she wasn't like any of these guys. Oh, no. She was rough and tough and big, and everyone was scared of her. So that's what we're going to talk about today and read the Mrs. Trunchbull, or Miss Trunchbull, the Trunchbull is what it's called. I don't think she was Mrs. anyone. And I have some vocabulary words, and then we're going to read another chapter after that that's called The Parent. So really 2 wonderful chapters today. I have some words that are unfamiliar, so I'm going to put these up where I think you can see them. This is sinewy. It's a muscular person. And remember, this author, Roald Dahl, is a British author. And so they use some terminology that we might not be familiar with. But sinewy is a muscular person, and she was muscular. And also, I forgot to before I go on, I don't want to leave out Mr. Stewart, because Mr. Stewart is our high school principal. Now, the Trunchbull was nothing like our principals. We have wonderful, sweet, kind principals. Oh, not Matilda. Breeches are pants just below the knee. Now, Miss Trunchbull wore breeches every day. She did. And we have brogues. They didn't call her shoes brogues. These are very heavy shoes. I don't know. I think they're more like boots, combat boots or something, but they're called brogues, and they're shoes that the Trunchbull wore. Barney is crazy and strange acting. Crazy and strange acting. We have Piffle. Piffle is nonsense. Just nonsense. I'm sure that some of your teachers have said that this was just nonsense what you were doing if you were playing around. They might say Piffle. And our last one is Brigand. Brigand is an outlaw or a robber. We would say outlaw or robber. They say brigand. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Remember to tell all your friends. I'll post it on YouTube, and then you can post it to Facebook, whatever you like. And I have my I'm into reading t-shirt on. I'm just being casual Monday today because it's such a wonderful day And then I think we're going to go out on the lake and just ride around or something. The Trunchbull. In the interval, Miss Honey left the classroom and headed straight for the headmistress's study. She felt wildly excited to be going there. Well, not really, but she was excited about Matilda. She had just met a small girl who possessed, or it seemed to her, quite extraordinary qualities of brilliance. Well, there had not been time yet to find out exactly how brilliant this child was. But Miss Honey had learned enough to realize that something had to be done. They had to be done because it as soon as possible, because it would be ridiculous to leave a child like that stuck in the bottom form. And they said form, and that would be like the classes, like third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. So she was like in kindergarten or first grade, and she should have been in high school with Mr. Stewart. Normally, Miss Honey was terrified of the headmistress and kept well away from her. But at this moment, she felt ready to take on anybody. She knocked on the door, and the dreaded Trunchbull, she kept waiting, and she was scared to go in, and she kept well away from her. But at this moment, she felt ready to take on anybody. She knocked again, and the Trunchbull's voice said, "Enter." Boom! The deep and dangerous voice of Miss Trunchbull. Miss Honey went in. Now, most headmistresses are chosen because they possess a number of fine qualities. So that's just like a principal, because they understand children and they have the children's best interest at heart, and they are sympathetic, and they are fair, and they are deeply interested in education. But Miss Trunchbull, she possessed none of these qualities, and how she ever got her present job was a mystery. Oh, I'm glad we don't have Miss Trunchbull. Now, she was above all most formidable female. She had once been a famous athlete. And even now, the muscles were still clearly in evidence. You could just see them in that bull neck and her big shoulders and the thick arms. Ooh. And looking at her, you could just get the feeling that there was someone who could just bend. She might be someone that could just bend the iron bars and tear telephone poles down and her face, I'm afraid, was neither a thing of beauty nor of joy either. Oh, my goodness, no. Well, she had an obstinate chin, a cruel mouth, and small, arrogant eyes. As far as her clothes, they were, to say the least, extremely odd. Well, she always had on a brown cotton smock, which was pinched in around the waist, with this wide leather belt that went across her stomach. And the belt was fastened in front with an enormous silver buckle. And the massive thighs, which emerged from out of this smock, were encased in a pair of extraordinary breeches, bottle green in color and made of coarse twill. These breeches reached to just below the knee, and from there on down she sported green stockings with turnip tops, which displayed her calf muscles to perfection. And on her feet she wore flat-heeled brown brogues with leather flaps, and she looked, in short, more like a rather eccentric and bloodthirsty follower of the stag hounds than the mistress of a nice school for children. When Miss Honey entered the study, Miss Trunchbull was standing beside her huge desk with a look of scowling impatience on her face. "Yes, Miss Honey," she said. "What is it you want? You're looking very flushed and fluttered this morning. What's the matter with you? Have those little stinkers been flickering spitballs at you?" "Oh, no, headmistress, nothing like that." "Well, what is it then? Get on with it. I'm a busy woman." And here she is. That's Miss Trunchbull. Doesn't look like any of our principals, does it? No. Well, as she spoke, she reached out and she poured herself a glass of water from this huge jug that was always on her desk. "There's this little girl in my class called Matilda Wormwood." "Oh," Miss Honey began. That's the daughter of the man who owns Wormwood Motors in the village, Miss Trunchbull barked. She hardly ever spoke in a normal voice. She either barked or shouted. An excellent person, Wormwood, she went on. I was in there only yesterday, and he sold me a car, almost new. Only done 10,000 miles. Previous owner was an old lady who took it once in a year at the most. Terrific bargain. Yes, I like Wormwood. A real pillar of our society. Huh. He told me that daughter was a bad lot, though. Oh, he said to watch her. He said if anything bad ever happened in this school, it was certain to be his daughter who did it. And I haven't met that little brat yet, but you'll know about it when I do. Her father said she was a real lord. Oh, no, headmistress. That can't be right, Miss Honey cried. Oh, yes, Miss Honey. It darn well is right. In fact, now I come to think of it, I'll bet it was her who put that stink bomb under my desk the first thing this morning. The place stank like a sewer. Of course it was her. Oh, I shall have her for this. You see if I don't. I shall have her. What she look like, that nasty little worm? I'll be bound. I'll have discovered, Miss Honey, during my long career as a teacher that a bad girl is far more dangerous creature than a bad boy. Now, what's more, they're much harder to squash. Squashing a bad girl. Oh, it's like trying to squash a blue bottle. You bang down on it, and the thing isn't there. Nasty, dirty things little girls are. Glad I never was one. Oh, but you must have been a little girl once, headmistress. Surely you were. Oh, not for long, Miss Trunchbull barked, grinning. I became a woman very quickly. Well, she completely off her rocker, Miss Honey told herself. She's borny as a bedbug. Miss Honey stood resolutely before the headmistress. For once, she was not going to be browbeaten. I must tell you, headmistress, she said, that you are completely mistaken about Matilda putting a stink bomb under your desk. I am never mistaken, Miss Honey. But headmistress, this child only arrived in school this morning and came straight to my classroom. Don't you argue with me. Oh, for heaven's sakes, woman. This little brute Matilda, or whatever her name is a stink bomb. She put it under my desk. There's no doubt about it. Thank you for suggesting it. But I didn't suggest it, headmistress. Of course you did. Now, what is it you want, Miss Honey? Why are you wasting my time? Well, I came to talk to you about Matilda, headmistress. I have extraordinary things to report about this child. May I please tell you what happened in the class just now? I suppose she set fire to your skirt or scorched your knickers, Miss Trunchbull snorted. Oh, no, Miss Honey cried out. Matilda is a genius. At that moment of the word, Miss Trunchbull's face turned purple, and her whole body seemed to swell up like a bullfrog. A genius? She shouted. What piffle is this that you are talking? You must be out of your mind. I have her father's word that this child is a gangster. Her father is wrong, headmistress. Don't be a twerp, Miss Honey. You have met that little beast only for half an hour, and her father has known her all of her life. But Miss Honey was determined to have her say, and she now began to describe some of the amazing things that Matilda had done with arithmetic. So she's learnt a new table by heart, has she, Miss Trunchbull barked. My dear woman, that doesn't make her a genius. It makes her a parrot. But headmistress, she can read. There's another picture. Miss Trunchbull yelling and screaming. Ugh. Well, so can I, Miss Trunchbull said. Well, it is my opinion, Miss Honey said, that Matilda should be taken out of my form and placed immediately in the talk form with the 11-year-olds. Ha! Snorted Miss Trunchbull. So you want to get rid of her, do you? So you can't handle her. Well, Miss Plimsoil in the top form, where she'll cause even more chaos? Oh, no, cried Miss Honey. That is not my reason at all. Oh, yes, it is, shouted Miss Trunchbull. I can see right through your little plot. And my answer is no. Matilda stays where she is, and it is up to you to see that she behaves herself. But headmistress, please. Not another word, shouted Miss Trunchbull. And in any case, I have a rule in this school that all children remain in their own age groups, regardless of their ability. Great Scott! I'm not having a little 5-year-old brigand sitting with those senior boys and girls of the top form. Whoever heard of such a thing? Miss Honey just stood there helpless before this great red-necked giant. Oh, there was a lot more that she would like to have said, but she just knew that it was useless. She said softly, very well, then. It's up to you, headmistress. You're right, it's up to me, Miss Trunchbull bellowed, and don't you forget that we are dealing here with a little viper who put stink bombs under my desk. She did not do that, headmistress. Of course she didn't, Miss Trunchbull boomed, and I'll tell you what, I wish to heavens I was still allowed to use that birch in the belt as I did in the good old days, because I'd have roasted Matilda's bottom for her so that she couldn't sit down for a month. Miss Honey turned, and she walked out of that study feeling depressed, but no means defeated, because I am going to do something about this child, she told herself. I don't know what it will be, but I shall find a way to help her in the end. So that's the end of chapter 8. Now, Miss Trunchbull is awful. Oh, my goodness. Would you like to work for somebody? Would you like to go to school with someone like that? Oh, I'd be scared to death. Now, our next, Miss Honey wants to do something. So what can you predict that maybe Miss Honey wants to do? I mean, what can she do? She went to the headmistress. What do you do now? The next chapter is entitled The Parents. So we can probably infer that maybe she is going to go talk to the parents. Good luck there, We have a couple of vocabulary words in this chapter. Well, actually just one, daft. Daft is foolish. Foolish. Okay. Everyone ready? I hope you're enjoying today. When Miss Honey emerged from the headmistress's study, most of the children were outside in the playground. And our first move was to go around to the various teachers who taught the senior class and borrow from a number of textbooks on algebra and geometry and French and English literature and the like. Well, then she sought out Matilda and called her into the classroom. There is no point, she said, in you sitting in this class doing nothing while I am teaching the rest of the form, the 2 times tables, and how to spell cat and rat and mouse. So during each lesson, I shall give you one of these textbooks to study, and at the end of the lesson, you can come up to me with your questions if you have any, and I shall try to help you. How does that sound? Oh, thank you, Miss Honey, Matilda said. That sounds fine. Oh, I am sure, Miss Honey said, that we'll be able to get you moved into a much higher form later on, but for the moment, the headmistress wishes you to stay where you are. Very well, Miss Honey, Matilda said. Thank you so much for getting those books for me. What a nice child she is, Miss Honey thought. I don't care what her father said about her. She seems very quiet and gentle to me, and not a bit stuck up in spite of her brilliance. In fact, she hardly seems aware of it. Well, so when the class resembled, Matilda went to her desk and began to study a textbook on geometry, which Miss Honey had given to her. And then the teacher kept half an eye on her all the time and noticed that the child was very soon became deeply absorbed in the book, and she never glanced up once during the entire lesson. Miss Honey, meanwhile, was making another decision. She was deciding that she was going to go herself and have a secret talk with Matilda's mother and father as soon as possible. Well, she simply refused to let the matter rest where it was, and the whole thing was just ridiculous. ridiculous. Well, she couldn't believe that the parents were totally unaware of their daughter's remarkable talents. After all, Mr. Wormwood was a successful motor car dealer, as she presumed that he was, a fairly intelligent man himself. And in any event, parents never underestimated the abilities of their own children. Well, quite the reverse. Sometimes it was well nigh impossible for a teacher to convince that the proud father or mother that their beloved offspring was a complete nitwit. Well, Miss Honey felt confident that she would have no difficulty in convincing Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood that Matilda was something very special indeed. And so the trouble was going to be to stop them from getting over enthusiastic. And now Miss Honey's hopes began to expand even further. Oh, she started wondering whether permission might not be sought from the parents for her to give private tuitions to Matilda. And the prospect of coaching a child as bright as this appealed enormously to her professional instinct as a teacher. Oh, and suddenly she decided that she would go and she would call on Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood that evening. She would go fairly late, though, between 9 and 10 o'clock, because Matilda was sure to be in the bed. And that is precisely what she did. Having got the address from the school records, Miss Honey set out to walk from her own home to the Wormwoods' house shortly after 9. And she found the house in a pleasant street where each smallish building was separated from the neighbors by a bit of garden. It was a modern brick house that could not have been cheap to buy, and the name on the gate said Cozy Nook. Well, Nosy Cook might have been better, Miss Honey thought. She was giving to playing with words in that way. She walked up the path and rang the doorbell. Ding dong. And while she stood waiting, she could hear the television just blaring inside. The door was opened by a small, ratty-looking man with a thin, ratty mustache who was wearing a sports coat that had orange and red stripes and material. Yes? Who can you guess that is? Probably Mr. Wormwood. He opens the door and he says, "Yes!" He said, peering out at Miss Honey. "If you're selling raffle tickets, I don't want any." "Oh, I'm not," Miss Honey said. "And please forgive me for butting in like this. I am Matilda's teacher at school, and it is important that I have a word with you and your wife." "Get into trouble already, has she?" Mr. Wormwood said, blocking the doorway. "Well, she's your responsibility now. You'll have to deal with her." And there he is at the door. He doesn't look very nice, does he? Rude. "Oh, she is in no trouble at all," Miss Honey said. "I have come with good news about her. Quite startling news, actually. Mr. Wormwood, do you think that I might come in for a few minutes and talk to you about Matilda?" "Well, we are right in the middle of watching one of our favorite programs," Mr. Wormwood said. "This is most inconvenient. Why don't you come back some other time?" Miss Honey began to lose patience. "Mr. Wormwood," she said, "if you think that some rotten TV program is more important than your daughter's future, then you ought not to be a parent. Now, why don't you switch that thing off and listen to me?" That shook Mr. Wormwood. He was not used to being spoken to in that way. He peered carefully at that slim, frail woman who stood so calmly out on the porch. "Oh, very well then," he snapped. "Come on in and let's get it over with." Miss Honey stepped briskly inside. Mrs. Wormwood, she isn't going to thank you for this," the man said as he led her into the sitting room where a large platinum blonde woman was gazing rapturously at the TV screen. And there she is. "Who is it?" the mother said, not looking around. "Some school teacher," Mr. Wormwood said. "She says she's got to talk to us about Matilda." He crossed to the TV set and turned down the sound, but left the picture on the screen. "Don't do that, Harry," Miss Wormwood cried out. "Willard is just about to propose to Angelica." "Well, you can still watch it while we're talking," Mr. Wormwood said. "This is Matilda's teacher. She says she's got some sort of news to give us." "My name is Jennifer Honey," Miss Honey said. How do you do, Mrs. Wormwood?" Mrs. Wormwood glared at her and said, "What's the trouble then?" Nobody invited Miss Honey even to sit down, so she just chose a chair and sat down anyway. "This," she said, "was your daughter's first day at school." "Well, we know that," Mrs. Wormwood said, ratty about missing her program. "Is that all you can tell us? We know that's the first day." Miss Honey stared hard into that other woman's wet gray eyes, and she allowed the silence to hang in the air until Mrs. Wormwood became uncomfortable. "Do you wish me to explain why I came?" she said. "Well, get on with it then," Miss Wormwood said. "I'm sure you know," Miss Honey said, "that children in the bottom class at school are not expected to be able to read or spell or juggle with numbers when they first arrive. 5-year-olds cannot do that, but Matilda, she can do it all. And if I am to believe her—" "I wouldn't," Mrs. Wormwood said. "She's still as ready at losing the sound on this TV." "She was lying then," Miss Honey said, "when she told me that nobody taught her to multiply or to read. Did either of you teach her?" "Teach her what?" Mr. Wormwood said. To read books," Miss Honey said. "Perhaps you did teach her. Perhaps she was lying. Perhaps you have shelves full of books all over the house. I wouldn't know. Perhaps you're both great readers." "Of course we read," Mr. Wormwood said. Don't be so daft. I read the auto car and the motor from cover to cover every week." "This child has already read an astonishing number of books," Miss Honey said. "I was simply trying to find out if she could come from a family that loved good literature." We don't hold with book reading," Mr. Wormwood said. "You can't make a living sitting on your fancy and reading storybooks. We don't keep them in this house." "I see," Miss Honey said. "Well, all I came to tell you is that Matilda has a brilliant mind, but I expect you knew that already." "Of course I knew that she could read," the mother said. "She spends her life up in that room buried in those silly old books." "But doesn't it not intrigue you," Miss Honey said, "that a little 5-year-old child is reading long adult novels by Dickens and Hemingway? Doesn't that make you jump up and down with excitement?" "Well, not particularly," the mother said. "I'm not in favor of blue stocking girls. A girl should just think about making herself look attractive, so you just can get a good husband later on. Looks is more important than books, Miss Hunky." "The name is Honey," Miss Honey said. Looks like my battery is low. Can you hold on 1 second and let me... This is live, so we have to hold on. I didn't plug it in, so just a moment. That was my fault. I had it plugged in and then I moved it. So there we go. Sorry. So now look at me, Mrs. Wormwood said. Then look at you. You chose books and I chose looks. Miss Honey looked at that plain, plump person with a smug, soot-pudding face who was sitting across the room. "What did you say?" she asked. "I said you chose books and I chose looks." "Oh," and Mrs. Wormwood said, "and who's finishing up the better off?" "Well, me, of course. And I'm sitting pretty in a nice house with a successful businessman. And you're just left slaving over teaching a lot of nasty little children their ABCs." "Quite right, Sugar Plum," Mr. Wormwood said, casting a look of some simpering sloppiness at his wife. Oh, it would have made a cat sick. Ugh. Miss Honey decided that if she was going to get anywhere with these people, that she must not lose her temper. "I haven't told you all of it yet," she said. "Matilda, so far as I can gather, is at the early stage, is only a kind of this mathematical genius. I mean, she can multiply complicated figures in her head like lightning." "What's the point of that? When you can buy a calculator," Mr. Wormwood said. "Girl doesn't get a man by being brainy," Miss Wormwood said. "Look at the film stars, for instance," she said, pointing at that silent TV screen, where a female was being embraced by a craggy old actor in the moonlight. Well, you don't think that she got him to do that by multiplying figures in her hand, do you? Well, not likely, I'm telling you. And now, he's going to marry her, and you see if he doesn't, and she's going to live in a mansion with a butler and lots of maids. Miss Honey, she could hardly believe what she was hearing. I mean, she had heard that parents like this existed all over the place and that their children turned out to be delinquents and dropouts, but it was a shock to meet a pair of them in the flesh. Matilda's trouble, she said, trying once again, is that she is so far ahead of everyone else around her that it might be worth thinking about some extra kind of private tuition. I'm serious. I seriously believe that she could be brought up to the university standard in 2 or 3 years with the proper coaching. University? Mr. Wormwood shouted, bouncing up in his chair. You want to go to the university, for heaven's sakes? All they learn there is bad habits. That is not true, Miss Honey said. And if you had a heart attack this minute and had to call a doctor, that would be a university graduate. Well, if you got sued for selling someone a rotten secondhand car, you'd have to get a lawyer, and that'd be a university graduate. Do you not despise clever people? Do not despise clever people? Mr. Wormwood? But I can see that we're not going to agree, and I'm sorry that I burst in on you like this. Miss Honey rose from her chair, and she walked out of the room. Mr. Wormwood followed her to the front door and said, Good of you to come, Miss Hawks, or is it Miss Harris? It's neither, Miss Honey said, but let it go. And away she went. And that's the end of chapter 9. Oh, those were really good chapters. I hear boats coming in on the lake. I'm so excited that you were with me today. So we found out that she didn't have any luck at the parents' house either, did she? No, she had no luck at all. So tomorrow we're going to read a couple more chapters, and I can't wait. And we'll see where we're hanging out with Mrs. Hammond at. In the meantime, be looking for Mrs. Reader's other readers that are going to be coming up. You're going to be so excited. See you guys later. Bye.